Hey everybody, Ryan FMTG here, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. Usually on this channel, I talk about a certain deck and talk about the goods and bads and how it kind of fits into the metagame. But today we're actually going to talk about the recent balance updates and mechanic updates that Teppen is implementing later on in October. They just released last night what they're exactly doing, and they said in October these will actually take effect with the new app update. So let's talk about what those are, and I'll give you my first impressions of if I think they're good or bad, and we'll kind of go from there. I do want to say I'm completely 100% okay being wrong in my assessments, because once the new set comes out, maybe it's like, oh, what I thought wasn't busted might be busted with new cards or something like that. So why don't we just go into them and see what we think about the changes. The first change is a rules change. So they're adding a mulligan system, and at the beginning of each game, you are able to exchange all the cards in your hand once. This is nice and simple. Most card games have a mulligan decision, and I think overall it's a good thing that Teppen is adding one, because it basically tries to mitigate the amount of non-games due to dead hands. The next one is revenge. So they are nerfing or tweaking revenge. Before, when a 3MP zombie would die, it would go back into your deck with revenge activated, and it would round down the MP cost, so it would be 1 MP. Now, rather than rounding down, it rounds up. So that 3MP zombie will now be 2 MP. I think this is overall a good change. Rounding down seemed almost kind of broken because there's so many 3 MP units with revenge, and then they came back as 1 MP, which is so cheap. And you could just flood the board of, zombie, 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 or zombie server, zombie, whatever. And it was a little bit too much. So I kind of like this. I still think revenge will be very powerful, especially in mid-range, grindy, or even control black decks. But overall, it doesn't have that feels bad or like the opponent of like, I can't win because they have a horde of zombies. And now we get to the hero arcs, nerfs, and buffs. To no one's surprise, Wrath Awoken is getting a nerf. Before, it cost 17 AP to use, and there was no limit on how much you could pump that creature. Now they increased it to 22 AP, and it's a limit of 3 pump to that creature. That's a big, big nerf in my opinion. So it's kind of what they did to Nergigante before, of upping the AP and giving it a cap. Overall, I like this change because I think it's good to nerf Wrath Awoken, because I think it's going to really pigeonhole what other decks can do in a meta, especially when we're getting new shiny cards later on this month. But changing it from 17 to 22, that seems okay to me. It seems a little intense to just make it +3 attack, because overall +3 attack is not that much. To be fair, if you put it, you still are giving the unit flight, and if you put +3 to a combo creature with your pump spells, it's still going to be really good. So I think Wrath Awoken is still going to be a good deck, but it's still a deck you have to build around, and the payoff is less good, but still pretty good. So I like the change overall. Darkness Illusion is getting a nerf as well, which this always felt pretty busted hero art. I've used it, I like it. It's a little bit too strong. Before, it only cost 15. Now what they're doing they upped it 7, so now it will cost 22. This makes sense to me, because you can kill 3 units, which a board wipe for 15 AP felt like nothing. Changing it to 22. 22 is very expensive. It's on the higher end of hero arts, but I still think this will be good. I still think you will play this type of deck in the future. It's just mitigates the time that you could do this back to back to back. You might just have to play finesse a little bit more. Overall, I like this change. Dark Destruction is getting a nerf as well. It used to cost 18 AP. The only thing that they're changing about this is now that it's costing 20 AP. This seems fine to me. I never thought that Dark Destruction was completely OP or anything like that. I think maybe they're just a little worried that it might just be a little too strong, and upping the AP cost by 2 doesn't seem too bad. It seems like it'll still be good. It's this nice mid-range grindy control hero art. So overall, I like this change as well. Ouroboros, this is kind of my favorite deck, so I'm a little sad to see it get changed. However, all bias aside, it definitely should be. It's too strong, and kind of like what I was talking about Wrath Awoken, it really pigeonholes and mitigates what other decks can be doing in the format, which is never fun, especially when new cards are coming out. So before it cost 22 AP, and you just summon the highest unit in your graveyard. But they're changing it to 22, so that's not a change. What they are changing is summon the highest MP unit to your graveyard to the field. Same thing. This is where the change hits. It's grant that unit death, removes this card from the game. So in Magic terms, it exiles it. That's actually kind of a cool change, because in my mind, I thought that they would just like maybe do an RNG like one of the highest, or a 6+ MP unit from your graveyard, which I didn't particularly like. Or I thought maybe they would just do 22 AP and bump it up to 26 or something, but 22 AP is already kind of a lot. So it's basically like, if a devil's in my yard, I can Ouroboros get it back, then it's exiled. I can never use it again, which is kind of something a little bit different. I don't think this like completely kills the deck. Like Wrath Awoken, I'm a little worried that might kill the deck, but I'm a little okay with that. I don't think this kills the deck. I think you might have to rely a little bit more on False Thrones, or making sure you play a devil again, or maybe a lot of times rather than getting 3 devils back throughout the game with Ouroboros, you get, 1 devil and 2 slow tyrants, which is still completely good. So I think this is a nice nerf, but doesn't kill the deck. It might actually not do that much. It might not do enough, right? So overall, I like this. I'm a little hesitant because I think it might not do enough, but I could be wrong about that, and this could just be this nice middle ground. The next one is Dive Attack. This is actually getting a buff because people don't play this. People do not play Dive Attack Rathalos that much because it used to cost 25 AP, which is so high. That's higher than Ouroboros. And it gives +2 attack to all friendly units, which that's a really good effect. But for 25, that's not worth it. So they're basically minusing 6 off that cost, and now it's going to only cost 19. I think this is good. A 19 AP critical art that gives +2 attack to all friendly units is actually going to be pretty good, and especially that Rathalos Wrath Awaken is going to go down and this is going up, we actually might see more dive attacks, and I think that's kind of cool. And I'm not really worried that this will be too OP or something like that. I think this is just a nice change of like, this probably should have cost 19 from the get-go. Then Quicksilver, yet again, another thing that's getting a buff. We didn't see much Quicksilver. Every once in a while, because yet again, the AP cost was 27. The effect is so powerful. It affects slow and counterbind to all enemy units, which is really, really good, hence why it costs 27. So they're actually nixing it all the way down to costing 18, which then, as soon as I saw that, I got a little worried. However, it's grants slow to one enemy unit, and that unit can't counter. So rather than a board of just slow, non-counter attack creatures, it only affects one creature. I like this. I actually think this could be really good, because that grants slow and can't counter is really, really good, especially on like a big Rathalos or a big Ibuki or Ouroboros deck. This is going to be good, and costing 18 seems like a right amount. I'm kind of excited about this one because this could give Dante a tool that he kind of needs in order for him to actually get more decks built around him. Now time to talk about some individual cards that are either getting nerfed or buffed. Yet again, to no one's surprise, Reckless Charge is getting a nerf. Before, it cost only 1 MP, and it just completes attack prep of a friendly unit. So that means as soon as you play it, as soon as it resolves, that creature just hits either the unit in front of it or the opponent, and you couldn't really interact with it once it resolved. What they're changing is it's going up to 3 MP cost, and it gives a friendly unit +2 HP, and that unit performs an instant attack. I think this is good. It's basically the effect is the same, but they're raising it 2 MP, which I think is good, because just raising it 1 MP doesn't seem good enough to me, because 2 MP is still really cheap. 3 MP is a lot. That means this will actually cost a lot, or you cannot do it for free in response to your opponent doing something. And then as a little extra bonus for the big MP cost, plus 2 HP is nothing to shrug about. I'm just happy that this isn't like plus 2 attack or something like this. Overall, I think Reckless Charge making a 3 MP cost is good because this card is not a particularly fun card to lose to. Now Ibuki's getting really nerfed. Before Ibuki cost 6 MP to play, and it started with 3 attack, 4 HP, has agility, Resonate, it got +1/+2. The only thing that they're changing is that it starts with 6 HP, and the Resonate is just +2 HP. So this does not become a heavy hitter. This will have tons of defense because it's already starting with 2 more HP than it did before, and the Resonate is just a HP boost. This really, really nerfs Ibuki. And I do like the big Resonate decks, but there are a lot of things, especially with Trish or Jester or Ko, that Ibuki always felt a little heavy hitter in it because it has agility, right? It has agility, it becomes this big creature. I think overall this is I'm going to say okay, because it now makes maybe big Resonate decks have to decide if they want to be more on the Jester plan or more on just one creature plan without Ibuki just being in every single deck. They are changing techniques. This is a card that I've never really liked because the RNG element of just randomness. Before, it said the effect is activated even if the randomly selected target of an action card does not match the condition on that action card. Now they're just basically saying that it has to match. So in my mind, this isn't really a complete change. It's just more like defining what this is because there's a lot of questions about it. I think that makes sense. It's just, it makes sense to make sure that people know what your card is doing. Four Eyes is getting a nerf. Yet again, to no one's surprise, this is up there with Ouroboros and Wrath Awaken, so this is definitely getting nerfed. Before, it was a 4 MP unit with 2 attack, 1 HP, that when played, if a friendly purple unit other than self with MP cost 4 is present, seize control of a random unit with 4 HP or fewer. This is kind of the power hitter of the 4 MP Morgan decks that are all over the place. So after this nerf, it's still going to be a 4 MP unit, still going to have 2 attack, but they're actually giving it 1 more HP, so it's going to be a 4 MP for a 2/2. It still has the criteria that you get to take a creature if you do have a 4 MP unit on the field, but rather than that unit being 4 HP or less, it's actually going to be 3 HP or fewer. I like that you only can steal a unit with 3 HP or fewer because that makes it a little bit narrower of what cards you can take, as well as those units tend to be a little bit more weaker, or you have to use your critical or another Splendid Buffet to get something a little bit bigger. I like that change. I'm not a fan of upping the HP to 2 because one thing that Four Eyes is so good is that you get a unit, you get to steal a unit, so you're taking a unit away from your opponent, which is so powerful, and then you yourself have a 2/1, which, isn't great, but you already got to brainwash somebody. So now having a 2/2 just makes that unit a little bit more powerful. I'm not particularly okay with making the body more powerful. So I think the 3 HP or fewer of stealing a unit, I'm in favor for. The giving herself another HP point, I'm not okay with at all. False Throne is getting a nerf, makes sense. Before, it just cost 1 MP to send one of the units in your deck with the highest MP cost to the graveyard. And the text stays the same, but they're just adding 1 MP. So rather than 1 MP, it's going to cost 2 MP. This makes sense to me, because if you have 1 False Throne and 1 Rebirth in your opening hand, you literally, because you start the game with 4 MP, you can just play this, play Rebirth right away, because that would cost 4. Now this way, it actually costs 5, because to do False Throne is 2, then to do Rebirth is 3, so you do have to wait till you net 1 more MP, which isn't a lot, but I think will slow Ouroboros down, and especially that they are nerfing the hero art itself, I think it will slow it down. I do think just making this one change to False Throne still makes it very powerful. I'm hoping that it does nerf it enough where it's still not so overpowered. In my mind, I wouldn't be completely opposed to making it 3 MP cost, just because 3 is a lot heavier than 1 or 2, but I think 2 is a good way. Maybe they just kind of want to see if like, hey, if we just add 1 AP, or sorry, MP to the cost, will this be okay? The last card on this list is Legend Eater Nergigante. This is getting a buff, which I think is really good because this is a legendary that if you open it, it feels terrible because it's not that good of a card. And I'm not saying that every legendary has to be this bomb that wins games on itself, but usually most of them in Teppen have a deck or two that they at least can fit in if they are not a powerhouse like, Chun-Li or any Rathalos or something like that. So Legend Eating Nergigante used to cost 7 MP and it was a 0/1. And then it said when played, remove 10 cards from your deck and it gains 5/10. What they're changing is the MP cost is now going down to 6, as well as they're adding Veil to it. And then when played, removes 10 cards from your deck and gains +4/+10. So they are making it 1 MP less to cast, giving it Veil, and then it's gaining 4/10. Kind of seems a little haphazard to me. Like, I don't necessarily, like, yes, you are making this card better, but you still have the downside of when played, remove 10 cards from your deck, which is something a lot of card decks do not want to do because that's a third of your deck. And especially this being a black unit where revenge cards are usually in black decks, even like Ouroboros that doesn't have a ton of revenge cards has at least 6 most of the time. So this just seems a little haphazard to me, and I don't like the whole thing of removing that amount of cards from your library. Veil is fine. Like, Veil's a really good thing. I don't particularly like Veil because it doesn't promote interactive games. It's a little bit too hard to deal with, right? So overall, I don't like this change. I think it was a good idea that they're like, hey, Nergigante is not a good card. Let's try to change it for that, to make legendaries better. But I don't think this really hits. Maybe, I'm not saying that this is going to be a bad card. I just don't particularly like it. I don't think it's flashy like the other cards or particularly cool. And making you remove 10 cards from the game is just a little bit too much. Overall, I like these changes. I like that it seems like Teppen knows that they will make mistakes with making either cards too powerful or too weak, and that they do need to change things. And I love that about digital card games is that it's easy to change things, right? You can test things around, you can change things without worrying about people getting confused. I like the changes overall. I am a little worried about the 4 MP Morgan decks still just being really, really too powerful, because the only thing that's getting changed from that is 4 Eyes, and it's not getting completely nerfed in my opinion. It's getting worse for sure, but not completely nerfed, where Wrath Awaken is really, really getting nerfed. Ouroboros is going to become slower, but still playable, but less that aggro combo that is a little bit too hard to interact with. However, it's a little hard to really know what we will see in the meta until the new card set comes out, so I'm happy that Teppen is making these changes. All of them seem pretty good in a nutshell. I don't like some of them, but overall, I'm happy. So if you like what you see, please hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you guys think. Are you happy with the nerfs and buffs? Are you not happy? And I will see you all next time.